Imagine inventing Wi-Fi, electric cars, and a death ray before Marvel even thought of Iron Man. That's Nikola Tesla. This man once claimed he received messages from aliens, built a remote-controlled boat in the 1890s, and then casually tried to invent a global wireless power system. Meanwhile, most of us still can't get our Bluetooth headphones to connect properly. Here's another fact that will blow your mind. Tesla once convinced people he could control lightning. Yes, literal lightning. Imagine being so confident that you walk into a room, point at the sky, and say, "Yeah, that giant electric death noodle up there? That's mine now." If Zeus had a LinkedIn profile, Tesla would have been listed as a competitor. And if that's not wild enough, the man had a photographic memory so sharp he could memorize entire books, word for word. He also, reportedly, only slept 2 hours a night, because apparently inventing the future left no time for naps. While most of us are useless zombies after missing one night's sleep, Tesla was out there inventing robots, predicting smartphones, and feuding with Thomas Edison, who was basically the Elon Musk of his time, but with more light bulbs and less Twitter drama. Welcome to History Makers, where history is chaos, comedy, and brilliant accidents. If you love crazy true stories from the past, hit subscribe and like this video so you don't miss the next adventure. So why does Nikola Tesla matter? Because he's the ultimate underdog genius. He gave us alternating current, radio technology, early robotics, wireless communication, and even dreamed of free global energy. Yet he died broke, feeding pigeons in New York, while other men got rich off his ideas. His life is the perfect mix of brilliance, comedy, tragedy, and the kind of absurd moments that make you say, "Wait, did that actually happen?" Spoiler: yes, it did. Today, we'll explore Tesla's story. From his wild childhood in Eastern Europe to his electric battles with Edison, his impossible dreams of global, wireless power, and his bizarre later years where he declared love for a pigeon. Buckle up, because this isn't just history. It mangs one of the weirdest and most inspiring roller coasters you will ever hear about. Nikola Tesla was born in 1856 in a small village called Smiljan, which at the time was part of the Austrian Empire. That sounds fancy, but in reality it was basically a countryside with more sheep than humans. His father was a Serbian Orthodox priest, which meant Nikola grew up surrounded by religious traditions and strict discipline. His mother, however, was the real unsung hero. She never went to school, but she invented household tools like mechanical egg beaters, weaving machines, and other gadgets that made life easier. In other words, Tesla inherited genius from his mom and stubborn determination from his dad. A dangerous combination. Now here's the first shocking fact about Tesla's birth. He was born during a lightning storm. No joke. The midwife reportedly said, "This child will be a child of darkness." To which Tesla's mother, in the most metal reply ever, said, "No, he will be a child of light." If that doesn't sound like the opening scene of a superhero movie, I don't know what does. Forget Batman, Tesla had a thunderstorm as his origin story. As a kid, Nikola wasn't just smart, he was weird smart. He had this freakish ability called eidetic memory, meaning he could recall entire books, images, and complex mathematical formulas in his head without writing them down. He once bragged that he could memorize whole volumes of poetry after reading them only once. Meanwhile, the rest of us forget our phone numbers the second we get a new SIM card. But being a genius didn't mean Tesla had it easy. As a boy, he almost died multiple times. He caught cholera, which nearly killed him. He had near-death experiences with watermills, rooftops, and experimental contraptions he built. At one point, he even got so obsessed with electricity that he stuck wires into bugs to see if he could power them like little biological batteries. Imagine a 10-year-old running around with an electrified grasshopper screaming, "It's alive!" Basically, young Tesla was one lightning bolt away from becoming a mad scientist, straight out of a cartoon. His family life was also complicated. Tesla's older brother, Dane, was considered the golden child. Brilliant, talented, athletic. But when Nikola was just 5 years old, his brother died in a horse-riding accident. Some stories say that Nikola witnessed it, and it left him traumatized for life. After that, Tesla felt like he could never live up to his brother in his parents' eyes. It was like growing up with the ghost of a sibling constantly overshadowing you. But instead of sinking into despair, Nikola decided to outdo everyone by becoming a genius so unique that no one could ignore him. One of Tesla's favorite childhood hobbies was daydreaming. He claimed he had these vivid visions, almost like hallucinations, where he could see his inventions in perfect detail before building them. Instead of sketching ideas on paper, Tesla would build machines in his mind, run tests in his imagination, and only then create the actual device. In his words, he could construct, operate, and test machines entirely in his head. Today, we'd call that next-level CAD software. Back then, people just called it Nikola being Nikola. By the time he went to school, Tesla was already making teachers suspicious. He solved math problems so quickly in his head that they thought he was cheating. One teacher even accused him of witchcraft, because apparently in the 1800s, if you were too good at math, the only explanation was dark magic. Instead of being burned at the stake, Tesla just got more determined to prove he was smarter than everyone else. As a teenager, Tesla became fascinated with electricity after seeing demonstrations in school. He once saw a diagram of a water wheel, and he imagined how invisible forces could spin turbines in a similar way. That thought became the seed for alternating current, his most famous invention. Most kids at 16 are worried about acne and crushes. Tesla was busy redesigning the future of electricity in his mind. But young Nikola wasn't just brains. He had quirks that made him a walking list of fun facts. For example, he had a lifelong obsession with the number 3. He would walk around buildings 3 times before entering, and he hated round objects like pearls. He also had a strange phobia of human hair. Imagine being the roommate who drops a strand of hair in the bathroom, and Nikola Tesla refuses to go in until you clean it up. He was brilliant, yes, but also delightfully bizarre. After high school, Tesla studied electrical engineering at the Austrian Polytechnic in Graz. At first, he was a superstar student, working so hard he barely slept. He impressed professors by pointing out design flaws in machines they thought were perfect. One professor even said that Tesla's ideas about alternating current were impossible. Spoiler alert, Tesla later proved him wrong in the most dramatic way possible. But despite his early success, Tesla's life took another sharp turn. He became addicted to gambling, lost a lot of money, and eventually dropped out of school. He never actually got his degree, which makes it even funnier that today he's considered one of the greatest engineers in history. College dropout, genius inventor, sounds like a Silicon Valley startup founder, only with more lightning and fewer hoodies. Tesla then drifted around Europe, working odd jobs. At one point, he suffered a mental breakdown and had visions of light blinding him. But in classic Tesla style, he used that crisis to dream up new ideas. In his 20s, he moved to Paris to work for the Continental Edison Company, where he fixed electrical equipment. This was the beginning of his fateful connection with Thomas Edison, though at the time, Tesla had no idea that one day they'd be locked in one of the greatest rivalries in science history. And just like that, the stage was set. Tesla had survived cholera, hallucinations, gambling debts, and suspicious teachers accusing him of witchcraft. He was armed with a brain that could build machines in thin air, a weird number 3 obsession, and an obsession with electricity that made him look like a wizard in training. The boy from a tiny Balkan village was about to take on the world and shock it. Literally. When Nikola Tesla arrived in America in 1884, He had 4 cents in his pocket, a few poems in his notebook, and a letter of recommendation for Thomas Edison. The letter supposedly said, "I know two great men, and you are one of them. The other is this young man." Imagine showing up to a job interview today with only pocket change and a hype letter that basically says, "This kid is your equal." That's confidence. At first, Tesla worked directly for Edison. Edison was all about direct current, DC electricity. It was simple, reliable, and could power a light bulb. But it had one major flaw. It couldn't travel far without losing power. That meant you'd need a power station every few blocks. Like Starbucks, but with more electrocution risk. Tesla believed alternating current, AC, was the answer. AC could travel miles and miles without losing energy. But Edison wasn't convinced. In fact, he hated the idea so much that he basically told Tesla, "Stick to fixing my machines and leave the big ideas to me." Spoiler, Edison was about to regret that. Now there's a legendary story here. Edison allegedly promised Tesla $50,000 if he could improve Edison's DC generators. Tesla did the work, fixed the machines, and asked for the money. Edison laughed and said, "You don't understand our American humor." Translation: "I'm not paying you, kid." Tesla promptly quit. Imagine quitting your job because your boss scammed you out of a fortune and then deciding to take down his entire electrical empire. That's not just quitting. It's plotting revenge at Marvel's supervillain levels. Enter George Westinghouse, a businessman with deep pockets and a love for Tesla's alternating current system. Westinghouse bought Tesla's patents, hired him, and together they launched the Great War of Currents. On one side, Edison and his direct current. On the other, Tesla and Westinghouse with alternating current. This wasn't just a scientific debate. It was a full-on marketing war. Edison tried to smear Tesla by making AC look dangerous. He staged public electrocutions of animals, including an elephant named Topsy, to scare people. Yes, Edison killed an elephant to win an argument. That's like losing a Twitter fight and responding by blowing up a zoo. But Tesla had the better science. At the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, Tesla and Westinghouse lit up the entire fairground with AC power. Millions of light bulbs, glowing at once, powered by Tesla's system. It was so dazzling that people instantly knew AC had won. Imagine walking into the future and realizing one eccentric inventor had just made it possible. That moment cemented Tesla as the wizard of electricity. And then came Niagara Falls. Tesla convinced Westinghouse to build the first major hydroelectric power plant there. When it switched on in 1895, it delivered electricity all the way to Buffalo, New York, 26 miles away. People were stunned. Tesla had literally harnessed a waterfall to power a city. He basically turned nature into his intern. But Tesla wasn't done. Oh no, his brain was running faster than the world could keep up. He pioneered radio technology before. Marconi, he built one of the first remote-controlled boats and demonstrated it to a crowd in Madison Square Garden in 1898. When people saw a little toy boat moving without strings, they thought Tesla was using telepathy. Some even thought he had trained a tiny electric demon inside it. Tesla just shrugged and said, "Nope, just radio waves." Imagine inventing the future and people accusing you of witchcraft again. Tesla also started dreaming bigger, like really big. He wanted to build a global wireless energy system. His idea was to send electricity through the air, no wires needed, and light up the entire planet for free. Free global power. Naturally, investors panicked. Free electricity. That's like Elon Musk announcing free Teslas for everyone. It's revolutionary, but it doesn't make anyone money. Still, Tesla found one investor crazy enough to fund him. J.P. Morgan, the richest banker in America. Morgan gave Tesla money to build a giant tower on Long Island called Wardenclyffe. The tower was supposed to beam power and communication signals around the globe. If it had worked, we'd basically have had Wi-Fi and cell phones decades earlier. Instead of yelling at your internet provider in 2025, you'd be yelling at Tesla in 1905. But the project stalled when Morgan realized Tesla wasn't planning on charging anyone for the energy. Investors pulled out, construction stopped, and the dream of free global power collapsed. Wardenclyffe Tower was eventually torn down, sold for scrap, and Tesla was left broke. The man who invented half the modern world ended up wandering New York City, feeding pigeons and racking up unpaid hotel bills. Still, during his peak years, Tesla's lab was a madhouse of genius. He experimented with X-rays, wireless transmission, turbines, neon lights, and even rumored death rays. He once built coils so powerful that bolts of artificial lightning shot across his lab. One night, his experiments caused a blackout in the entire neighborhood. Imagine being Tesla's neighbor. 1 second you're reading quietly, the next your house is shaking with thunder because Nikola down the street accidentally summoned Thor. Tesla's quirks also became legendary. He claimed to work up to 20 hours a day, living on just 2 hours of sleep. He was obsessed with cleanliness, constantly washing his hands to avoid germs. He hated pearls so much that he refused to talk to women who wore them. He loved pigeons, especially one white pigeon he described as his soulmate. At one point he said, "I love that pigeon as a man loves a woman, and she loved me." Yes, Nikola Tesla basically had a pigeon girlfriend. If that doesn't tell you how weirdly wonderful his life was, nothing will. Despite all this eccentricity, Tesla's impact was undeniable. His alternating current became the global standard. His patents on radio and remote control shaped modern communication. His visions of wireless power foreshadowed Wi-Fi and smartphones. He was decades ahead of his time, to the point where people still argue that he might have been an alien. Honestly, if Tesla showed up tomorrow in a UFO and said, "Sorry, I left early," half the internet would believe him. By the turn of the century, Tesla was a celebrity. He gave dazzling lectures where sparks flew, coils roared, and people gasped as he lit bulbs with his bare hands. He hung out with Mark Twain, who loved Tesla-S gadgets so much that he once used one of Tesla-S vibrating machines as a very personal kind of therapy. Yes, Mark Twain was literally shaken by Tesla. Talk about electrifying literature. This was Tesla at his peak, the wizard of electricity, the man who beat Edison, the genius who lit up the World's Fair, and the dreamer who wanted to give humanity free energy. The only problem? The world wasn't ready for his wildest ideas. And Tesla was about to find out that being too far ahead of your time can be just as dangerous as being behind. After his dazzling victories with alternating current, radio, and Niagara Falls, Nikola Tesla should have been set for life. Fortune, fame, a mansion filled with gold-plated light bulbs. Instead, things went downhill faster than a shopping cart on ice. Why? Because Tesla was the kind of genius who dreamed of giving the world free energy, which is basically the worst business model ever. Investors like J.P. Morgan wanted profits, not utopian visions of wireless electricity raining down from the sky, like Oprah shouting, "You get a light bulb, you get a light bulb, everyone gets a light bulb." Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower project on Long Island was supposed to change everything. It was a giant, otherworldly structure that looked like a cross between a radio mast and a steampunk water tower. Tesla planned to beam both wireless communication and unlimited free energy across the globe. Imagine your phone, your TV, and your toaster, all powered by a tower, hundreds of miles away. Sounds amazing, right? But J.P. Morgan pulled his funding the moment he realized Tesla wasn't planning to charge people for the juice. "Where do I put the coin slot, Nikola?" Morgan probably asked. Without money, the project collapsed. the tower was dismantled and Tesla's grand dream died before it began. After that, Tesla's life turned into a mix of tragic comedy and bizarre eccentricity. He kept inventing, but with fewer resources and fewer people paying attention. In the early 1900s, he claimed to have built a death ray, which he called the Teleforce. According to Tesla, this weapon could shoot concentrated energy beams strong enough to melt steel and bring down airplanes. World leaders, including the US and Soviet governments, showed interest, but nobody ever actually saw the machine work. Was it real? Or was Tesla just trying to stay relevant? Either way, the idea of an elderly man in a New York hotel room sketching blueprints for a giant death laser is both hilarious and terrifying. Then came his fascination with pigeons. Tesla spent his later years wandering around New York City parks, feeding flocks of pigeons. He particularly loved one white pigeon, claiming it communicated with him telepathically. Tesla once said, "I loved that pigeon as a man loves a woman, and she loved me." Historians still debate whether this was deep spiritual symbolism, or Tesla literally confessing he was in a relationship with a bird. Either way, it didn't help his reputation as the eccentric old wizard. Tesla also developed countless phobias and quirks. He refused to touch round objects, couldn't stand the sight of pearls, and insisted on staying in hotel rooms with numbers divisible by 3. He hated germs so much that he washed his hands obsessively. He also claimed he never shook hands because human touch disgusted him. So yes, the man who gave us the modern electrical grid also would have been a nightmare at a family dinner. Financially, Tesla was ruined. He lived in a series of New York hotels, often unable to pay the bills, relying on sympathetic friends or admirers to cover the costs. His obsession with endless new ideas meant he rarely followed through on projects that could have made him rich. He could have been a billionaire, literally the Bill Gates of his era. But instead, he ended up bankrupt, scribbling notes about impossible machines like earthquake generators and wireless thought photography. But here's the kicker. Even as he fell into obscurity, his influence kept shaping the future. Engineers built on his ideas. His alternating current system powered the world. His concepts of radio, wireless communication, and robotics became the backbone of the 20th century. Tesla once predicted smartphones by describing a small, handheld device that could instantly connect people across the globe. That was in 1909. He was so ahead of his time, it's almost suspicious. Which is why some conspiracy theorists today claim Tesla's was an alien. Honestly, if he'd ever shown someone his green card and it said Planet Mars, nobody would have been surprised. In January 1943, Nikola Tesla died alone in room 3327 of the New Yorker Hotel. He was 86 years old. He left behind trunks of notes filled with wild ideas, some practical, some impossible, and some so weird they read like science fiction. After his death, the US government swooped in and seized his papers. Many of them were eventually released, but some remain mysterious to this day. Which, of course, fuels endless conspiracy theories about death rays, free energy, and alien contact. And yet, despite dying penniless, Tesla's legend only grew. Today, he's remembered as one of the greatest inventors in history, the eccentric visionary who was always one step ahead of everyone else. He's been immortalized in books, movies, video games, and even in the name of an electric car company. Ironically, Tesla Motors is now a multi-billion-dollar empire, something Nikola himself never managed to achieve in life. If he could see it, he'd probably say, "Finally!" But also, where's my cut? Tesla's legacy is bittersweet. He gave humanity the foundation for electricity, wireless communication, and so much more. But he never got the recognition or the fortune he deserved during his lifetime. He was the classic case of a genius, too advanced for the world around him. He dreamed bigger than anyone, sometimes too big, but in the process, he electrified the future. So, what do we make of Nikola Tesla? He was born in a lightning storm, grew up building imaginary machines in his head, beat Thomas Edison in the War of Currents, lit up the Chicago World's Fair, and then tried to give humanity free energy, only to end up broke, hanging out with pigeons. Honestly, if you pitched that as a Netflix series, people would say, nah, too unrealistic. But that's exactly why Tesla's story matters. He wasn't just a scientist or an inventor. He was a dreamer who thought on a scale so massive it made everyone else look small. He wanted to light up the world, and in many ways, he actually did. Sure, he never became rich. He had some eccentric quirks. And yes, he may have been a little too emotionally attached to a pigeon. But he also laid the foundations for the technology we use every single day. Without Tesla, your smartphone, your Wi-Fi, even your ability to watch this video right now would look very different. And maybe that's the best way to remember him. Not as a tragic failure, but as the ultimate example of how being weird, bold, and just a little bit crazy can push humanity forward. Tesla once said, "The present is theirs. The future for which I have really worked is mine." And judging by the fact that his ideas power our world today, he wasn't wrong. If you enjoyed this story, like the video, subscribe to History Makers and tell us in the comments which fact about Nikola Tesla surprised you the most. Was it the death ray, the alien theories, or the pigeon love story? We want to hear your take. Thanks for watching, and remember, history isn't just about the past. Sometimes, it's about the guy who tried to electrify the future before anyone else even plugged in